guys. Happy Thursday. It is Charlotte Cornegay coming live to you with another Forever Friends episode. How are you guys doing? Happy May. It's May Day. Y'all, it's May. I'm so happy that it's spring. I know for some of you, it's been spring for probably since April, but where I live, we are finally getting some good weather. So I'm so happy. I love the springtime. It's not too hot. It's like just perfect weather, in my opinion. So I'm happy. Today was a good day. It was a beautiful day outside. So I'm really happy. But let me introduce myself to those who might be newcomers tonight. My name is Charlotte Cornegay. I'm an author, recording artist, creator of Interact Coaching and Forever Friends Academy, which is my subscription-based membership where I do group coaching. And this is my show, Forever Friends Academy, where we talk about all relationship topics. My main goal is to help provide fundamental relationship skills and principles to help people develop relationships that last a lifetime and to help them be able to love to their fullest capacity. So they show up in their relationships and they show up in every other area of their life, the most optimal, best version of themselves to create the most fulfilling and optimal experiences in their life. So welcome if you're new. I am a singer and a songwriter as well. If you want to check out the music, I go by Charlotte K. That's Charlotte with an S, not a C, and K. Google me, go on your music platform of choice, and definitely peruse the music. I love music. I dedicated this month because I was heavily in studies because I ventured into project management and I was heavily studying to get my certificate. And thankfully, I received it. And now I'm focusing on the music. So I can't wait to get some new music to you folks. So I appreciate you. Hey, pretty girl, how are you? Thank you for popping in, love. Thank you so much. All right, so let's dive into tonight's topic. And I figured, I have been coming on for a while, but I was like, let me rewind, the dial and talk about what Forever Friends is, because I'm sure people think of the name Forever Friends Academy and like, okay, relationships, people, especially now in the current modern culture, whenever you think of friendship, sometimes people just think of friend zone. And so I wanted to kind of dive deep on it in what it exactly is and how I created it. So I'm going to put out a question for you guys tonight, first to facilitate this conversation. And so my first question to you guys, I actually have two. I have a quote and two questions for you guys. So the two questions, and I'll put out the first one first. The first one is, who are, I guess, what you would deem your forever friends and why, right? Who are your forever friends and why? Why are these people the people that you want to exist with, engage with for a lifetime, right? So that's the first question. And then my second question for you guys tonight, I thought about because I was watching this podcast recently that had a relationship coach on, and I can't remember his name right now, but he said something that got my mind, reeling and thinking. And so he was stating to the young women who were hosting the podcast, he said that many of his clients, he realizes that they get more success if they date for fun rather than to date for marriage, right? And just to give you some context, I believe why he was saying that was he was saying that the women that date for marriage tend to be a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for? I would say it like this. Maybe their expectations kind of proceed them in the process of when they're trying to get to know someone. And so it might take out the fun out of the engagement, might thwart the natural process of really getting to know someone and developing a friendship or other type of relationship dynamics with someone. So my question for tonight is, what do you think is the best approach for dating, and what do you think the best approach is that would give you the best kind of outcome, because that's what he said on the podcast. He said the women that I coach that date for fun have a better outcome, meaning like to actually get to the state of becoming a wife or getting married, rather than the ones that he come to him and are very kind of focused on getting married. So, do you think dating for fun, number one, dating for marriage, number two, or dating for like growth or learning? And I'm trying to think of another one. Is there another approach? I don't think so. I can't think of one right now. You guys let me know. Oh my goodness, Queen. How are you, love? Thank you for popping in. She's at work and she's popping in to kind of say hello to me. So, I always appreciate you guys' time. You can be anywhere else. So if you pop in with me, I appreciate you. So that is, thank you, love. Thank you. Dame Beso, I miss you. Thank you so much for popping in. I appreciate you. So that is the questions for tonight. Who are your forever friends and why? Why they're in your life? If you could if you can throw out three characteristics, if you were to describe to me the friend that you feel like is in your life, and is a forever friend to you, what would their three characteristics be? And why is the relationship so valuable or important to you that you know that you want that relationship to continue on for a lifetime, right? So that's number one. And number two is, how would you advise someone to approach dating or approach getting to know someone? Because, I don't really like the term dating, but to get to know someone, would you say, to get the best kind of, I don't want to say result or outcome, but best experiences, out of it, would it be dating for fun? Would it be dating for marriage? Or you like just dating to learn or dating for growth? Let me know what your thoughts are. So those are the two questions. And the quote from tonight is straight up from the Bible, because I'm going to give you guys the background of forever friends and what it is, right? And the scripture that comes to mind is, there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother. I believe it's in Proverbs. Let me check it. Y'all know I got to fact check myself just in case somebody want to look it up, So let me fact check it. Let me fact check myself so I can give you guys the right scripture if you want to check it out. So that's tonight's quote. Let me know if you think it's a truthful statement. I don't mind. I'm still open to people's opinion, even though it's from the Bible. Let me look it up for you guys, the scripture, so I can tell you where you can go look for it. Okay, I was right. Okay. I'm not always best with quoting exactly what the exact scripture is. Not that I said the exact one, but I was just happy that I was somewhere in the vicinity. It was Proverbs, which I love Proverbs. That's one of my favorite books. All of the wisdom books I love. So it is Proverbs 18:24. There is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. And that's tonight's quote. So as per usual, do you think it is a truthful statement? Do you think it is a statement that would be great to apply in relationships to facilitate, right? Developing relationships that do last a lifetime. All right. Queen says, forever friend. 1, spiritual, good relationship with God, family oriented, talks, communicates well. All right. I like it. Those are all great things. I can see why that person who is in your life is valuable, because those are all great characteristics. Really, really good. So tonight, while I wait for any more of you guys to get on with me, and remember, I got to tell you guys, you can come on and talk to me face to face, guys. So let me put that up. I tried to get a little bit more swift with it, because I was putting in the link and I don't know if everybody could see it. So, I turned it into a QRC code so that you can just put your phone up to it, get it, log on and come and talk to me. So if you don't want to type, which I totally understand because it's the evening hours and you want to come on and you're okay, you dressed appropriately and all, definitely come on with me. So I'm going to switch screens real quickly and show you the QRC code that you can scan so that you can log on to the show. It's really easy. If you have your phone, you just put it the QRC, your phone, scan it, and then it'll just say join show. You put your name in, and there you go. I'll put you on if you want to speak your answer instead of typing it. So, real quick, I'll show that to you guys. All right, and so there you have it. I will probably go a little back and forth. I'll get better with and put a QRC right on the this scene, but I'll probably put it up maybe one more time after we get into the meat of the conversation to see if anybody else wants to come on. So anyway, okay, Forever Friends, all right. Where did I come up with the name Forever Friends Academy? Right, but it's from Forever Friends, and so I want to start with what it's not. Okay, so Forever Friends does not mean you are a person that's going to stay in the friend zone, right? Because a lot of people, when I say that, that's the first thing that they think. And they're like, I don't want to be a forever friend. I want this thing to elevate to, right, marriage normatively when when I'm talking to a person who wants to date intentionally and wants to vet potential partners to become married. So it is not that. It is not you staying in the friend zone forever and never coming out of that ever again, right? So number one, it's not that. Number two, it is not getting in a relationship that is void of passion, that has no deep intimacy, you know, it's not that, because a lot of times people, and I've talked to so many people who feel this like, oh, I could never imagine myself being with this person because it's just platonic, it's just friendship. And so they think of that when, they think like, oh, I don't want to think of my husband or my wife or my partner to be like just a forever friend. It seems like it's just dull or like flatline, and not something that's, rich in intimacy and things like that. So it's not that, right? And I'll do a quick little context of the beginnings of how it started. And I've said this before on the podcast, but just because of the fact of what we're talking about tonight, Forever Friends actually is a name that I created after I started getting into the coaching space. However, initially, the idea and the principle of it really came from Ben and I starting our friendship in high school. And when we started our friendship in high school, our relationship just kind of organically flowed, right? There was no expectation on either side when we started really hanging out. But then when we started to see that there was, a little bit, a little extra sprinkles and sparkles. You know that I'm a girl explaining that, right? A woman's explaining that. I'll say spark because that's gender, just in case like if Ben was explaining it. But anyway, when we realized that there was possibly a pull there, right, where this could elevate to something more, we had the conversation. I remember specifically Ben telling me that, before you came into my life, I looked around, definitely in my inner circle, my family, my friends, and I saw people constantly having relationships that failed over and over and over again. And particularly what he said left him kind of confused was that you have all these beautiful women, whether it was within his family or friends and things like that. And, in a simple way that sometimes we look at relationship is like, okay, you figure that person is attractive. What would be the problem that the relationship would not work out? And he said in his own intimate prayer to God, he wanted to know why these relationships weren't working. And I love the example that, God gave him. He said, that's because people are trying to make pancakes. All these people are trying to make pancakes and they refuse to put the main ingredient, which is the flour, right? And so they're ending up with scrambled eggs. I always love that story when he says it. hence why I put in my book, right? And so he said, okay, the next relationship or potential relationship that I will get into, I'm going to make sure I put you as the main ingredient in it, right? And so I just happened to be the next person that would like enter his life. And so I remember when we realized like, okay, this is probably something that we can kind of see or navigate if there's something more than us staying as like a platonic friendship. And he said, I don't want to put a title on this. I don't want to, the boyfriend, girlfriend, I see people fail at it all the time because when people take the title and then they put so much weight and expectations on it and pressure for performance that it seems like the relationship just buckles under the weight of it. And, at first I just was kind of like, you know, I'll be very honest, I was because I was a very used to making sure things were like black and white when it came to relationships because for on my end, I just saw relationships not working out. And I saw a lot of times the women just in my one point, young, very, very young and not necessarily mature point of view, I felt like the women were getting the worst end of the stick. And so for me, I just was like, okay, I'm going to make sure I, you know, guard my heart and make sure that I put certain things in play. I don't want any, my main thing was like, I just want clarity, transparency is clarity. I don't want things to be fuzzy. And so when he first told me that, I was kind of was like a little bit like, no, But as he explained it to me, and it made more and more sense, and I mean, I didn't have to really peer out and look further. I thought about the relationships that I was in before him, and I was like, well, I did. I was very clear. I wasn't making an ultimatum, but I just would tell them like, listen, I don't do the talking thing. It's very clear, black and white. I'm your girlfriend, you're my boyfriend, etc., and that's it. Like let's move from there. And so even though I made it very clear what my standards are, I wasn't forcing them or anything like that. But the relationship didn't work out, right? Because just because you put the title on it doesn't mean the title doesn't is not the glue that holds the relationship together. It's the character of the individuals in the relationship, right? That will make the relationship work. And so when he explained that to me, I just had to think about the things that I experienced, and then I could peer out into others. And I was like, well, you know what, you're absolutely right. And he said, I would like to do this process with, and one thing I will make this clear for people who listen to this. He made it very clear what his intentions was. And I mean, he was very young to be thinking like this, but he said, I'm looking for a wife. I'm looking for someone who can flow in God with me. I want a God-centered relationship, and I want it to naturally, organically harmonize. I want us to be able to naturally and organically harmonize together. So that was very clear to me. And even before him saying that, he didn't really have to, because I had already been around him enough, experienced him enough, saw him in so many other circles, and saw his consistency. So he didn't really have to say that. I knew, I could discern that about him. So I will say that, right? Because, there might be people out there will try to run game and try to use that. It's not the same thing, right? So back then he said, okay, so if we're not going to do boyfriend girlfriend, maybe we'll just say we're Christian companions or something, because we did not want to step into this thing using the same clothes that people were doing, or the same process, I should say, that people were taking that was leading to failure paths. And so that's really the beginnings of where it came from. Now it evolved into Forever Friends once I started, after we got married, and I started wanting to create a space for people in relationships, and singles too, just people to come and talk about relationship skills, and talk about, foundational principles and tools that people could use to help, build relationships that are strong and fortified, Christ centered in God and etc. And so I the name evolved from Christian Companions into Forever Friends. And the reason why I evolved it to that is because I thought about the scripture that there's a friend that sticks closer to you than a brother. And I always think about marriage, in family ties. Once you're born into your family, right? That is the dynamic that you're thrust into. And so oftentimes when you're already connected, to people in that way. Sometimes there are unspoken obligations that could feel that are there. Whereas, man, if you're going into a relationship, there's no biological tie, man. That's an authentic, pure of like, I'm showing up for you. Like, there's nothing holding us together, and it is literally my choice each day. It is my character. It is your character. It is what the value I feel like we have to offer each other that is making us say, or choose, allowing us to choose every day to stick with each other. And I also came up with Forever Friends because when I thought about, how Ben and I came together, I'm like, I was born in Jamaica. He's born in Brooklyn. I literally had to come across seas for him, to find me and for me to meet him. And it really came from a deep centered gratitude for each decision and each step that had to take place and that had to occur that had really nothing to do with me, but at the same time, everything to do with me, right? Because all of those steps, all of those choices led him to me. And I mean, well, we don't necessarily think about relationships like that, but we really, it is beneficial to think in that way, to understand that that's the truth. Because when you think of the person has entered your life in that way, you it's easier for you to kind of relinquish control that you might want to have over the relationship, or feel like you need to what's the word I'm looking for, like guide it in a certain way. When you think about like, okay, well, how many how many choices or how many things had to occur before this person even came into my life, right? And God thought about me to bring this person to me. So now when this person is in my space and they're giving me, all that I want, all that I need, and maybe it's the opposite for some people. Maybe it's we're in a rough patch and this is one of the low seasons and maybe they're not giving me all I need. And so now I feel like either way, right, both of those situations, the person can feel like, okay, I need to take the wheel and I need to, something has to be done so that they can either keep giving me, I need to control them. They need to stay in my space so they can continue to pour the goodness into me and everybody off limits, they're mine. It could be like that, right? Or it can be on the other end, like, oh my gosh, wait, we're derailing. Things are going off, oh my gosh, dealing with the ebbs and flows that relationships come, that occur in a relationship. We can try to control it. And so when I thought of that, it reminded me to honor all of the steps that occurred before Ben came into my life, honor the fact that I'm able to experience him in the now, and then honor, right, the fact that whatever life we're building together, I pray that it echoes in time to our Heavenly Father as something that was a union that was able to be brought together that could pour out into others, right? So it's all of those three facets, right? Those three tiers. So that's what that's like the background of why Forever Friends came to be, and I find that when I coach couples and I kind of give that type of, story and background, then it kind of helps them get out of, if they're in a funk, or if it's like it's hard for them to get out of, okay, I'm right and you're wrong, when you start to think about that and then you kind of relinquish control and open your arms to receive trust, and guidance from God to figure out how to navigate further this relationship so that we can figure out how to navigate the season that we're in currently, so that it can have a better future rippling effect for our relationship and for all the other people that we need to impact. So I want to take a moment. Sorry, it's Queen. I just saw that like you're writing a lot. So I want to say your statements because you're taking the time out to write it, which I so appreciate you, love, because I know you're at work. Oh my God. All right. So Queen says, I have a boyfriend girlfriend status as grown ups. Okay. I don't know how to fix my mouth to say, she's making me laugh already. I don't know how to fix my mouth to say a 37-year-old that I have a boyfriend. LOL. I mean, it could be looked at as like, cute. I don't know. She said, I personally want to remain friends and pop up, engaged. I understand one day being boyfriend and girlfriend and never being able to evolve because it becomes a comfort zone. Yeah, absolutely. And I understand that. And, at the end of the day, I remember something else that Ben said. And he says it to the couples that we might that might come up to us and talk to us. You the government. You can say that's your girlfriend, you can say that's your boyfriend, but the government. Look at me say the government. The government says you're single, right? Until you're married, right? Like they don't acknowledge it. They gonna tax you more. So honestly, that's what you are, right? Like you're friends until you elevate it to that stage. So I totally understand from your perspective of what you wrote. Like, how do I fix my mouth to say that? Because I think that honestly, that's what it really is, And I think when you I think as long as, because, right, and I say this to people when they, when I tell them the story, like I just told you guys, as far as where it came from, it's not that on the outside, right? And of course, right, Ben, we were 17. So, yeah, it's a little bit different. But even so, we knew what we were doing, right? Like that intimate conversation happened between the both of us. So we knew what relationship plan. I had just talked about a podcast of no, people have desires and they misinterpret a desire for a plan, right? So if you say you want to get married, is that a plan or is that a desire, right? How do we differentiate? How do we know the difference, right? And so it's a desire if that's just okay. This is what I want, but I'm not necessarily. I don't know what my weaknesses, my strengths are. I don't really know certain relationship skills, things like that. Then it'll remain a desire, right? But a plan is something that's executed. So for us, the first thing was okay, identifying what wasn't working, right? So the boyfriend and girlfriend title is more so the what, but the why we didn't want to put that title is more important. If that makes any sense. So the why was people are taking these titles and putting the weight on the title and less weight on the fact that is the character of the individuals, right, that come up, and more importantly, what those individuals submit to as they're engaging with one another in the relationship, right? So when we went out, people introduced, like, if it was Ben's mom or Ben's sister or people, families, they were like, that's Ben's girlfriend, or that's Charlotte's boyfriend, right? We didn't care about that because we knew what we were doing. So I would say in a situation like that, Queen, what you're talking about, as long as you guys, the person who is your forever friend, as long as you guys have an intimate conversation and you have moments where you check in to say that we're not kind of like just doing this by default and expecting that the title that we've put is going to be the thing that naturally makes us elevate to the next level of marriage, because we know that's not true, right? It just in the same way that when people elevate to marriage, that paperwork that they sign is not the thing that is holding, clearly, because we have so many divorces that are going on. It's the character and the moral ethics of the person, of how much they are going to take the vow that they have made towards each other as serious, right? So it's more so, instead of getting hung up on the title, Now, if somebody comes to me, definitely young, too old, I'm gonna say it's not that title is not necessarily necessary, because it blurs things for people, and a lot of times people will use that title and then just act like they're married, but they're not. You know what I mean? And then it becomes a blurry type of skewed type of situation. So, but more than focusing on the title is, like I said, the why behind it. The why behind it is that, you know, you don't want to put so much weight on the title and then people don't pay attention to or don't assess how the relationship is really truly right growing or evolving, or if it's not, so that's that, I would say that's the main thing. And I always kind of use this example when I'm talking to people. It's like when you go get a job, right? People say, well, when you go to a job, they're going to give you that position first, and then you do all, your roles and responsibilities. But I'm like, no, 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 no. Before you get that job, you got to write your resume. You got to submit that resume to that corporation, and they're going to look, based on your resume, whether it's your educational background, whether it's your skill sets, whether it's your community service, whether you are fit to have that position. You know what I mean? And sometimes that's not the process that we take or do when it comes to relationships. We slap that title on there, bad boy, like girlfriend, boyfriend, or whatever. And then we expect for that to be the thing that creates the boundaries, right? Of the relationship. The boundaries, okay, this means you're not going to do that. You can't step out. You don't. And we know that's just not simply the truth. And here's another example that I also give to people too. Just think about like what we're talking about tonight, right? The question that I threw out to you guys. Who are your forever friends, and why are those people the people that you know that you want to be in your life for a lifetime, right? There's a friend that sticks closer than a brother. That means that there are people, which I'm sure anyone listening right now can probably, and maybe unfortunately, right, identify with that. There are people who were biologically supposed to show up in your life, whether it was your father, your mother, your auntie, your uncle, your cousin, whatever it may be, where there were friends in your life that showed up and were more loyal and were more supportive and you know what I mean, than those people who you were born, into that type of family structure. So that's also another example to show you that the title does not represent, or it doesn't always mean that it's going to be reflective of how that person shows up in your life, right? And because of that, that's why that scripture is there. There's a friend that will stick closer than a brother, because it's the character of the people in the relationship, right? That will show through and through that, okay, wow, no, yeah, this person has modeled, reflected, demonstrated love to me over and over and over again, right? Demonstrated that they are trustworthy, demonstrated that they are honest and courageous and will tell me the truth, even if it's uncomfortable and it hurts, Our friendship has been tested, through the test of time and change and the blows of life, and this person has remained consistently in enriching my life. So it's more so that's what Forever Friends Academy is really about. And it is the idea that as the relationship elevates, with each elevation, that friendship is never the weakest point of the structure of the relationship, that it is the thing that will be pervasive, and it is the thing that will allow, those two people to hold fast to each other, to God, and to be able to walk, together in life. Let me read, because I believe Queen. See, I miss Queen, and Queen fast too. So I don't. She be typing really fast. She types really fast. Queen says, I'm back to the old school mindset of why would a man buy the cow when he can get the milk for free? When I think of boyfriend and girlfriend, I think of that, saying it's watered down marriage. Oh no. Yes, the character for sure. I think people who are committed naturally want to evolve and move, yes, into the stage of marriage. I am going to put that on the broadcast because that's so good, Queen. She said, yes, the character for sure. I think people who are committed naturally want to evolve and move into the stage of marriage. Yeah, and that's why I said, like, even though, Ben told me that even at a young age, I mean, I was, I was shocked at how intentional and focused he was at that young age. I think certain people, are just called to be and do certain things even at a very young age. And he definitely, had his reasonings as to why he focused on things like that. So I think you're right. When you have two people who are committed to growth, who are committed to evolving, don't want to stay stagnant. And I think more importantly, I think those two people have to see the sacredness of marriage, because now in modern culture, marriage is not something that many people view as sacred, or even they can even wrap around their the idea of it or why it's necessary, you know. So at least I guess even in a formal or traditional sense, So yeah, Queen said he was raised right. I will completely agree with you. I think my mother-in-law, God bless her angelic soul in heaven, yes, she did. She raised him very right, and I'm cooping. I'm living off the benefits, so I appreciate it. All right. So if you're just coming in, welcome to the podcast. Tonight, I want to show the code to you guys because you can call me. Call me. You can, well, it's not really call. You can join, but you can use your phone, right? But you can also use the laptop. So I'm going to show the code again just in case there's some new people coming in tonight. We're talking about what it, what does it mean to be a forever friend? Who are your forever friends in your life and why? If your friends could describe you in 3 words, what would they say? How would you describe them in 3 words as far as why they're in your life? And Forever Friends Academy, right? Forever Friends, we just talked about why and how I came up with it, and it came up from me, at Ben and I developing, our friendship that, of course, evolved into marriage, and the undergirding principle that we kind of use to shape the development of our relationship. So, again, definitely you can call me, join the show. So I'm going to show the QRC code again, just in case you're new to the podcast. And I'll put the link in too, just in case people want to see it that way. All right. So I'll be back. Let me show it to you. Okay. I see that Queen, I think, type something else. So I want to read that. Queen says, sanctification. People don't value the holiness of becoming one with another person. Marriage is being set apart for God's purpose with your partner. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, okay, before you even get to marriage, right? And I think this principle is overall, right, in any relationship dynamic that you have, whether it's just a friendship that will stay platonic, or it'll be a forever friends that'll grow into marriage, and your friendship will build and build and build, as you grow. The principle two is better than one is truthful, right? It's in the Bible. If you look and you take it outside the context of the Bible and you put it in real life scenarios. I always use this simple example. Anybody who has played puzzles, put pieces of puzzles together, do you see the picture of the puzzle clearer with the pieces of the puzzle apart or together, right? And so the simple answer is you see the picture clear when those two pieces of a puzzle is together, right? Let's say pieces of puzzle that fit, right? That belong in the same puzzle. And I think if people approach relationships in that way, that when you're learning to get to know someone, and you're seeing how that person is adding value to your life, how they're making certain the picture clearer for you, right? Maybe the picture clearer for you might mean that you're more aware of yourself and the possibility of what you can do. Like for me, an example for me is me doing this. This was not in the cards for me, people, right? Like I people see me and oftentimes they, you know, the way that I look is not the way that I am. If that makes any sense, at least that's what I've been told, right? And so in that way, I'm not a person who necessarily wants to do things where you have to be a public spectacle. You know what I mean? I like to sit down, I like to observe, I like to listen, I love to learn. Growing is like my number one human basic need. Like you can't make me feel bad about really not a lot, but if I feel like I'm not progressing or if I feel like I'm not growing or learning something new or different, then I feel like, oh gosh, like Lord help me, right? So in that way, and a lot of times the learning for me, the way that I feel like I best absorb it and taking it in is through observation and through listening, right? So when I have to be put into a space where I'm doing more or most of the talking, it's not really, as they say, my cup of tea, at least what I would think as far as the feeling of it, right? But my skill set says different, like what God poured into me, how I'm able to articulate, how I'm able to get across, how I'm able to, put certain words and things together to help bring, understanding to others. And, my husband is the one who encouraged me and said, when people were responding to something that I initially just started to do out of my own sheer gratitude for the fact and the miracle of my relationship and my marriage, people responded and said, okay, well, no, this is something that we need, and we need more of it. I need a, you given like a, what's the word I'm looking for? You know how you do like the spring cleaning or the in-depth cleaning, or you can just tidy. In my house, in my Jamaican household, there's a difference between deep cleaning, right, from just a liquid. You're just tidying up the house, right? So, me doing the group sessions is like I'm tidying up your house, right? Because I have to the things that I articulate or the things that I say, are more generalized, right? Because it has to hit all the group of people that are there. Whereas people wanted some spring cleaning, right? They wanted me to deep dive. They wanted me to get in the corners and the crevices of their house. And so they stayed. And at first I was completely like, no, that's I'm going, it's like it's what we're talking about tonight, right? You get the divine inspiration, which I did get from God to say, okay, yeah, come on here and, create space, open up your home, let people learn about how you and Ben have kind of like cultivated this relationship that they are admiring, right? And that clearly is, it's demonstrative that it's lasting. So yeah, out of my gratitude and honor and inspiration, I did that. But I tried to take the wheel when I started, to see that it was evolving past what I thought that I was gonna do. It was like, oh no, only this much, God, not this whole. I didn't say I was gonna do all that, you know. So thankfully, right, my husband's like, no, Charlotte, you are more than equipped. You are skilled. You not only are skilled on so many other levels, not just like okay, your own personal experience and in the demonstrated power of your own relationship, but the fact that you do have an educational background in this as well, and you also have people who have been in your sphere, your sphere, inner circle that and some outer circle people too that you have been talking to and you've seen the evidence and the fruits of the way, the wisdom you've given them, the guidance. You've seen the effect and the outcome. So why not do this? So I mean, in that way, like the person is in your life and they're able to make you see the picture clearer about yourself, make you aware about certain things that you're not necessarily seeing, you know? Let me take a moment to read. I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything because, whenever someone's taking out the time to type, I definitely want to take a moment to, listen and read to you guys. Look at it, not listen, and read it to you guys. So, but I don't believe I missed anything. Um, so, yeah, so how to become a forever friend, how to be, a forever friend to a lifetime partner. Basically, that's how I would put it before thinking of the romantic aspects of a lasting relationship. Ask yourself that question. How do I become a forever friend to my lifetime partner? And what does that entail? And so, number one is acknowledging all of the things that had to take place for God to grant you to have an experience with that person, because then that will appropriate any time that control tries to come in, anytime that the ego tries to show up, anytime pride tries to show up, anytime selfish tries to, show up in the relationship, the honor and the gratitude and understanding. There's I wrote it in my book, 7 Stages of Love and Relationships, and it's actually something I wrote it in the book because it was something that I did, an exercise that I did in one of my workshops, where I would ask the people to like close their eyes and just take a moment to think about someone in their mind. It could be someone that you love. It could be someone that you just said hi to today, and I say in the exercise, now I want you to think about all of the steps, the decisions, the choices that had to be made for them to even have one moment of interaction with you or experience. Like, we don't, when I think of it, I'm in awe of like all that it takes to have one little interaction of just hello with someone, because we're all out here, living our life and going through and trying to navigate this life to the best of our ability. And each person has their own story and piece of the puzzle, and part of the holistic kind of vision of God's purpose here that we play. And there's so many elements, so many things that come to it involved, it's amazing when you think of it. And so when you start to think about your partner in that way, when you start to think about your husband, your wife, in that way, then it's very hard for you to remain in a type of mentality or attitude towards them of either entitlement, of either expectation, or either disappointment, when you really center yourself in the truth of the matter. Like, oh my gosh, there were so many things that this person went through in life. There's so many choices that their parents had to make, that their grandparents had to make, that their great 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 grandparents, and so on and so on and so on, right? All had to make all of these decisions. When I think about my relationship with my husband, we met each other in high school, right? Like I knew of him when I was 13, right? He saw me, and he'll tell you, in high school, and we were in our gym class, and he saw me. He said, "God, yep, I want her," right? Like, that's the one I want. But then he says he saw all these guys, coming up to me all in the same time that he said that, and he will say it, proud Brooklynite. And he was like, okay, clearly everybody else want her too. So I'm not trying to chase her or anything like that. And he let it go, if it's that adage, what God has for you, right? Or a principle, more than a adage. The principle, whatever God has for you, right, is for you, no matter what, right? And so that's like in the 9th grade. It took until the 12th grade for us to actually, as I like to state, start our forever friendship, where we were actually getting, we were in the same space, but not really interacting with each other in depthly until we both became on the school council, and then we started hanging out. But outside of that, he moved literally from Brooklyn around the corner from the school, for us to meet. Like, it's there's so many, what if his mom decided to stay in Brooklyn, right? Would he have ever met me? So I'm saying that the decisions and the choices that had to be made for that person to come into your life had nothing to do with you. Meaning you had no hand in making the choices, in making the decisions. However, you were still very much at the core of God thinking that these two people need to cross paths. So when you think of that, then it's like, okay, whoa, hold on. You know what? Let me trust God and let me trust the process. And I think let me, more than me dictating whether I say it's through standards or whether I say it's me expressing my expectations, which, by the way, you can do, right? There's nothing, well, expectations is the fastest route to disappointment. So you guys know how I feel about that. But if I'm not everybody, right? I'm not saying Rome is not built in a day. So I'm not going to say it's very easy for somebody to just drop their expectations and relinquish it, right? That's something that it takes work. It takes constant reflection and dropping the ego and dropping selfishness to be able to say, okay, I'm in this, navigating through this relationship without really having expectations. And I'm able to, because of that, see what's right in front of me and see what's going on and assess in real time as it's going on without the expectation blocking all of that. But what I have learned that it does is that instead of you saying, okay, I'm going to dictate this process or I'm going to try to kind of control this process and try to guide it through me setting my own whatever standards and dictating whatever my, I won't say dictating because that sounds bad, expressing my expectations, I'm going to first and foremost consult, right, God on how the best way it is for me to love you. Because there were so many other decisions and processes that brought you to me that I had nothing to do with what God did, right? So when I'm not there, He's there, and maybe the best example that I can give to someone listening, to put it in a better context, to kind of make it a little bit clearer, if you are a parent listening to this. I know for me, my mother-in-law told me something that it affected me and impacted me, and I made sure that I did it with each and every one of my children. She said that when she gave birth to Ben, right after, like literally in the hospital, she gave him up to God, right? Like, God, you gave me this son, I give him back to you. And it impacted me when she said that, because even as a young child, she gave him a lot of kind of free reign, freedom. Not like free reign, like he can just do anything, of course, right? There's still structure, but the trust that she had, and any mother who is a mother of a black son living in the inner city, right? That comes with sometimes a different type of prudence that you want to navigate this life in. And so for her to have that type of kind of faith and trust where you can, she just didn't seem like when he was out, with his friends or things like that, or playing outside, and that she was like stressed and, with just laden with worry because of her handing his life over to God and knowing that she can't be there 24/7, And so for me, my children that I have, I did the same thing to all three of them. And it does provide that. And when she told me that, again, it was kind of like the same conversation that Ben had with me when we were talking about Christian companions that turned into forever friends. All I had to do was look at my life, because my father passed away when I was 7. He passed away in Jamaica. I didn't even see his funeral, right? Like, and my mom, she couldn't raise me, but God took care of me. Like, God took care of me in such a way that it went beyond me surviving into thriving, right? And so with all of those things being said and factored in, there's no one who is going to teach you how to love your spouse, your partner, your husband, your wife better than consulting God in the best way to do it. Because even in the best of our intentions and us feeling like we know our partners to the T, there will be things that will be missed. And even if we do know them to the T, when we're engaging with each other and there are offenses that are made or differences in personalities and things like that, that we factor those things in. It's hard sometimes to hit the mark, right on the 10. Like playing darts, is sometimes it's hard to hit the mark right in the center, because those things come in to kind of take away from it and distract from us. So I've learned, I consult God a lot on the ways that I should love, Ben, the ways that I should. What is the best way, to communicate or get this message uh, that you need me to get across to him? What season is he in right now? Like, I know he was kind of over here. I see he's thinking, so that constant internal type of prayer makes for a good discovery and exploration process, so that I can meet the need of the relationship. And he does the same thing towards me. So let me take a moment because I do believe I have something new from. Wait, do I? I want to make sure I'm missing some. Did I miss anything? No. Okay. All right. I want to make sure because I I don't want to miss what people are writing. I want to make sure that I, say all the things. Okay. Oh wait, I did. Okay. See, I knew. Maybe I was ahead of the game. I was in the future with the spiritual Wi-Fi. Like, Queen just wrote something. All right. She said, my pastor has been teaching on different seasons people can be in when you meet them. That's a great point. Yeah, absolutely. I'm telling you. And especially, and I always tell, definitely the women that I talk to this, consult God, you know, like I said, on how to speak, how to communicate, how to love your partner, and vice versa. Same thing to the men, because that's one of the ways that if that's a person that's really connected to God. Because let me tell you, this has been so many situations where I have had my own internalized prayer to God that I said nothing to Ben about, and I literally will see Ben either act out the same, like not act out, but demonstrate the same thing that I've been talking to God about, like from very micro things to the macro, right? So, like a micro thing, I remember one Valentine's Day, and I'm not like into. If we're talking about like love languages, acts of service is my thing, right? Because that's the way that I love. Like, I love people through the service that I give them, So I guess, they say the way that you pour out, sometimes that's the way you want to get it back. So that's like my supreme kind of love language. And so flowers or gifts and things like that, that's not my necessarily like go-to thing. But I remember this one Valentine's Day, I was in like a Walmart or something, and I just like was getting something else, but I passed these teddy bears, and I remember looking at one specific one that caught my eye. I think it was like red and had like a heart in it, and it said something. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not into teddy bears or anything like that, but if Ben gets me something, that's the teddy bear that I want. Right? And I didn't tell him it at all. And I will not kid you. I will not kid you. I don't even think he bought it on Valentine's Day. I think he bought it for me before Valentine's Day. And he bought the same teddy bear the exact same one. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, like, wow, like this really works. And another time I remember might have like wanted flowers or something like that. He came. All I'm saying is that that's one of the ways that keeps the relationship connected to know, and it's one of the best ways you can kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like confirm that you both are still, right? Like engaging with God to learn about each other more, you know? So if you're doing that, often and the messages aren't landing, and don't get me wrong, like don't, because we've been together for a while, right? So I know you've heard of couples that have been together, so that we have a certain type of harmony, a certain type of rhythm. Especially, the law of inertia is real in relationships and in life. Or like you when you're doing something, you're developing behaviorisms, and it's continually right being modeled and demonstrated. Those things continue on, right? So the more that we take those foundational principles that we started off in the beginning of the relationship, those things have a compound effect, right? The compound love effect is how I stated it in one of my videos that I posted. And so we have a compound love effect now that we can kind of like know what the other person is thinking. But even still, in all of the years that we have been together, it's still very amazing to me that, you know, there are things that could occur in the relationship, and your first go to is like, oh, let me say this, let me get this off my chest. And I would tell you that instead of just reacting or responding so quickly in that way, if you take it to the throne of God, man, what you will experience and what you will learn and what you will get will be a lot more than whatever release you think that you're going to get out of just saying, let me get this off my chest in this moment. So that is a fundamental principle of what Forever Friends is. Queen says, that's the same way God confirms things for me in a relationship. I know when God has me where he wants me to be and with who he wants me to be with, even if for a season when God speaks to me about the man, he has not spoken to me about two men I have dated. God has only spoken to me about, oh, okay, I'm sorry. She said correction. God has only spoken to me about two men I have dated. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's a good way to confirm, So yeah, so those are some of the principles of what forever friends actually mean. So again, what it is not is not you being in the friend zone forever. That's not what it is. Number two, what it is not is, okay, we're going to have this lackluster type of marriage that has no passion, no in-depth intimacy and things like that. No, it's not. It's actually going to afford you to have more because it's you honoring all of the decisions, all of the moments, all of the things that had to occur for this person to come into your life that had nothing to do with you, meaning that you had no control over those decisions. However, God had you in mind. God had you in mind because he said, I'm going to have these people make these choices, and I'm going to put all of these things in place so that they can cross path with each other, so they can have an opportunity to build with each other. When you stay in that understanding and positioning, that will allow both of you to free fall into trusting God in the process that you are in, and continue to communicate with God and go and consult God to say, what is the best way I can love this person you have brought into my life, because you know them way more deeply than I do. And I would like to know them on deeper levels, deeper depths. It doesn't matter whether you're married 20, 30, 40, 50 years. There are deeper depths, right? Especially if you're consulting God about how to show up in the relationship that you keep, because we know, learning love, learning about God is an expansive sea, and how to apply that in our relationships, then it can become a very intriguing and interesting process to be in. And I like to put it like, if you to become a forever friend to your lifetime partner, it means that you want to fall in love with the process of discovery and exploration, right? And discovery and exploration are They're used interchangeably, but they're not the same things, right? Discovery means you're uncovering certain things, right? Which is the beautiful part of when we're in relationships that happens, right? You're with that person, they see your blind spots. There's certain things like you could be alive as like what beautiful queen said, 37 years of life, right? And you have your own rhythms, you have your own modes, you have your own outlooks and perspectives on life. And here comes God bringing somebody in your life to say, take a nice little microscope, and not in a way, right, where I don't want anyone to get the idea that I'm saying, someone that is in your life is going to be like an Inspector Gadget and just like revealing all your flaws and things like that. I'm not saying that type of relationship. I'm saying that naturally, especially intimate relationships that develop into marriage, and relationships that offer value, exchange of value with one another, is that they are going to be in your life to show you the areas that you're not clear on, or maybe you're not even aware of it. You ever been around someone, and we have certain, all of us do, right? Have certain tendencies. Like me, my husband says, and I'm sure you guys have heard it on so many of my videos, I have like a little chuckle, a little laugh that I do. And sometimes I do it in the most inopportune times, like right now. Well, maybe it's a good time now. I don't know. And, my husband would be like, Charlotte, like, you're just I'm sorry, I'm doing it now. You're just chuckling for no reason. And sometimes I'll do it, right? Like I'll chuckle and I'm saying something that's like really like like a very important point, or something that's really hard, like a hard hitting truth. And he's like, that's not necessarily the proper time to do that. But then I realized when he told me, in my childhood, the way that I would kind of cope with certain things that happened in my childhood, if they were traumatic or not, well, no, really, if it was traumatic, that's how I would deal with it, is through laughter. So I would like just, either say something funny or turn the situation into something funny. It reminds me of, I don't know if you guys have seen, I didn't see the whole episode, but I saw a little snippet of it, of Damon Wayans. I believe he was on Shannon Sharp's podcast, and he was saying how their family would turn certain things. I think he asked them a question of like, how do they handle if one of their family members were doing something, like if they were addicted to drugs or got into a situation in the public eye. And he said, honestly, we're a family full of comedians, so we would probably make like a joke out of it. And he said that someone had actually called him and said, I don't know, they had some naked pictures of somebody in their family, and he literally was like unfazed, because he said, okay, well, let me know, send the pictures to me, because I'll make a whole joke out I'll make a whole joke out of it. So I think, of course, clearly I'm not, well, not clearly, you don't know that, but I'm not that deep in it because I'm not a comedian. But it was a behaviorism that kind of formed from that. And so when he highlighted it to me, I'm trying to get better with it. I'm clearly not there all the way. And I don't do it in, but it's like a buffer. It's almost like someone saying, for me. So yeah, do I want someone necessarily to highlight those things? But we all have them. Some people, they might tap their fingers, when they talk or feel a certain way. And yeah, your partner, especially if you're married and you see each other, often, all the time, yeah, those things are going to come out. You know what I mean? So yeah, those are things that, if and you state, you kind of rest in that truth of it, then it won't rub you the wrong way, as much, if they are, presenting it to you or highlighting this to you, because you remind yourself, like, okay, yeah, why is this person here in my life if they're not going to increase or exchange value with me and increase my value as of what I can offer, right, to the people that God has destined me to impact here, than me being as polished, right, as possible, to be able to, do my job to the most optimal capacity, And sometimes not easy pills to swallow. Sometimes, especially if it comes in a corrective form, right? But that's what they're here to do. I'm not saying somebody nitpick on everything. That's not what I'm saying. But that person is going to be there to do that. So those are some things. So those are some of the ways you can kind of approach becoming a forever friend and giving you a little bit of the understanding of what the principle and why I came up with that name, where it came from. So friendships is important, you know. Like if you leave with nothing else tonight, remember that scripture that there is a friend that sticks closer than a brother, and think about the people in your life that don't have any biological ties for you, but choose to show up for you over and over again because of whatever value they feel like you offer to them, and the value they offer to you. Friendship has to be the, you know, pervasive type of string that connects the relationship and the evolving of the relationship throughout time, that it'll bring the enrichment to the relationship. God centered friendship, that enriches the other areas of the relationship. That it won't harm your relationship, don't be dismayed. When you say friend, it doesn't mean that, oh, it's going to be dry. This relationship is going to be dry. you know? No, it increases the passion. And I think, I know for me, and you guys always hear me say it, I love to create things that outlast me, whether that be via my songs that I create, whether it be the books that I write, whether, you know, be the content that I put out, unless somehow the internet just goes off the rails, then all of that is gone. But I have my own, backup things, little time capsules that I want to put it for my family to hear. But I bring that up to say that the forever friends is honoring the decisions and things that occurred before, honoring the present moment of engaging with that person, and then right beyond, because we don't know if marriage is in heaven, but friendship, yeah. You know what I mean? Like that's something that's like, yeah. You know what I mean? Meaning like the things that we do or function in a marriage, maybe those things might not be in heaven or beyond, but you can, friendship, that's probably something that'll can echo throughout time, so it's the connecting of all those things. And hopefully, I hope that it can be a reminder of how to appropriate yourself to think about how or what's the best way to engage with this person that God has granted you in your life to be with. So hopefully it's a way that you can continue on in honor and gratitude in the significance of the relationship that you're keeping, you know? So hopefully you guys, hopefully I give you a little context, as to where Forever Friends came from. And hopefully you enjoyed what we talked about tonight. And yeah, I'll be back on with you guys, God willing, Sunday. So if you liked anything that you heard, if you're new, if you're not new, and you are reoccurring, but you have not subscribed to my Forever Friends Academy YouTube channel, definitely do that. Subscribe, like, comment, spread, definitely. So that people can hear the content. There's so much content out there, and a lot of it, in my opinion, is miscued and misdirected information. And I don't think it's building, enriching relationships. I think it's kind of causing a divide. an unnecessary divide in relationships. So my aim is the complete opposite. So if you like anything that you heard, definitely comment, like, subscribe. Go to my Forever Friends Academy. You can find all of the full episodes there. You get notified when I'm on. And thank you. Thank you guys for all who came on, especially Queen. Thank you so much for coming on. I so missed you and all the wisdom that you gave on the show. Great. You were a pleasant surprise tonight. Thank you so much, and everybody else who came on. So, as always, your time, your energy, and your faith, priceless energy. And I appreciate you guys for coming in. You could be anywhere else, and you decided to stop in with me. So, until next time, all right. Always remember to live, to love freely, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye, Queen.